If one could list or categorize the most sacred sites in the world, or rather the places where these important spiritual events took place, Kirtland would have to be found near the top of the list. I could say that among those found at the beginning of the list would be the Garden of Gethsemane, where the atonement took place. This would be where Christ knelt in prayer and sweat great drops of blood from every pore. This would be the place where the Savior took upon himself the sins that resulted from the fall of Adam, as well as the wages of sin, the physical death and the separation from God that came upon mankind. This would be a place of spiritual significance that might far exceed any other event in history of mankind. The atonement is the reason that all must come unto Christ. Of course, teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ and the calling of the 12 apostles with authority to administer the gospel would probably be close to the top of the list also. This also happened in Bountiful, as we read in the Book of Mormon, where Christ chose 12 and taught the gospel, another event that changed a particular part of the New World, just as the first 12 apostles did in the Old. However, these two events that took place during the temporal ministry and resurrected ministry of Christ were limited within their scope. Christianity spread throughout Europe, but it was under the hand of a state religion, where many of the plain and precious truths had been extracted. Jacob teaches us in chapter 5 of his book that after the time of Christ, the whole world, or the vineyard, would become corrupted and become fallen because of the loss of truth and the rampant wickedness of pride, wealth, power, and the flesh. The fact that Christianity was on the earth in any form is a good thing. But the great time of apostasy is foreseen and prophesied by the ancient prophets and apostles that Jacob explained centuries before with the words that all the fruit of the vineyard had become corrupted. However, the prophetic eyes also saw a time when the power and authority of God would be restored, and the gospel preached again, never to be taken from the earth. They saw a time when the work of God would forge ahead, succeed, and endure despite the powers of darkness trying to stop the Lord's work. Like Bountiful, where Christ appears at the temple, teaches the gospel, calls and ordains 12 to administer that gospel, and then sends them forth to teach the gospel and gather the believers, and then organizing a church and eventually establishing a millennium-like culture among the righteous people, where they had all things in common. So Kirtland becomes the Bountiful of the last days. Kirtland is where Christ appeared in his temple, where the keys of the priesthood are given and restored, where the 12 apostles are called and ordained to go forth to teach the gospel, and begin the gathering of the righteous in preparation for the second coming of Christ. Kirtland is the place where the first temple of this dispensation of the fullness of times is constructed and the heavens are opened, where the Father and Son appear more times than anywhere else recorded in history. In Kirtland is where the gospel goes forth with authority, never to be taken again from the earth as in times previous. It's here that the church is organized with its priesthood quorums, offices, and keys. Almost half of the sections of the Doctrine and Covenants were given to the young prophet here for that very reason, to organize the church and to establish Zion. The missionaries and priesthood leaders that go forth from Kirtland have the records of Christ and the apostles as recorded in his mortal ministry in the Bible, along with the words of Christ and his disciples during his resurrected ministry among the Nephites. Kirtland represents a place where the last days begin, and the fulfillment of visions and dreams of all of the prophets from Adam onward are fulfilled. Kirtland, like Bountiful, is a place where the gospel will go forth, but this time to the entire world. Like the Garden of Gethsemane, the sacred grove, and Bountiful, Kirtland will be near the top of the list as the home of the sites and events that have and will change the world in years to come.